is the Zoom meeting of the Arundecoit Zoning Board of Appeals. In compliance with Governor Cuomo's executive order pertaining to public meetings during the COVID-19 outbreak, tonight's Arundecoit Zoning Board meeting is being conducted using Zoom. I'll now call the meeting to order, and I'll ask everyone to join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. This meeting is available for live viewing on Facebook, live listening via the phone-in information provided on the town's website. The meeting will also be rebroadcast on ICAT Government Access Spectrum Channel 1303. Tonight, for each case subject to a public hearing, we will follow a similar order of operations as we normally do, except tonight we are using remote access options. Applicants will be invited to join the meeting via Zoom or by phone when their case is called. Once the public hearing is opened, public input on each case can be received either by email or phone. Similar to a regular meeting, each person providing public comment will need to give their full name and address. They'll be given up to 5 minutes to provide their comments to the board. Once your comments have been received, we will move on to the next email or call, if any are waiting. We ask anyone sending in comments during the public hearing to put the address or case number in the subject line of the email. During the public hearing for each case, staff will monitor the zoning board at arundecoit.org email. The emails will be read into the record by staff. Please be sure to provide your name and address for the record. Or the public can call in using the information provided on the website and displayed at the bottom of the screen on Facebook. While the public is listening to the meeting on the phone, they can provide comment on the current case by virtually raising their hand by pressing *9 on their phone. If you call in to make comment on a public hearing case, you will receive a prompt on the phone that you've been unmuted. That is your cue to speak to the board. One thing I forgot to mention is that we call the cases in the order that they appear on the agenda. When the applicant starts their presentation, we ask them to identify themselves by their name and address, take a pause, raise their right hand so they can be sworn, and then proceed to present their case to the board. During the presentation of the applicant's case to the board, board members may engage in conversation, discussion, or have questions for the applicant, and that will continue until all of the board members have had an opportunity to participate in that presentation. Once that presentation is concluded by the applicant or their representative, we then move into the public hearing portion and follow the procedures that I just outlined. So I'd like to, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your participation and patience as we navigate our second and perhaps final Zoom remote meeting. I'm hoping that by the time July comes around, maybe we can at least gather and be socially distant in the town hall. So if our secretary could call our first case for the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First case on the agenda is case number ZB 2020-06-1. Upon the matter of request by Amy Burnaby for an area variance to construct a new front porch with less than required side setback on premises 96 Wabash Avenue in an R2 residential district.
Well, I'm going to have to unmute the applicant. I'll be doing that right now.
Okay.
And now Amy is unmuted, and you may state your name and address, and then allow the chairman to swear you in.
Sure. It's Amy Burnaby, and my address is 96 Wabash Avenue.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. I don't see an image, but I'll trust that you're raising your right hand.
I
Do you
am.
swear- Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So if you could just explain your application briefly, you want to put a porch on the front of your house.
Yes, I do. I want to put a porch on the front of my house, and I wanted to extend the whole length of the home. And I guess there was a conflict with the side setback, although the property is already built within that setback anyways. So I'm hoping that we can just continue on and build the porch.
So for those who may be watching, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it's the the setback at the south end of the property. That's the one at issue, and that is where the south wall of your house is. And all you want to do is continue that line forward through the porch, and that's the only thing that you need in order to be able to go ahead with the porch. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It looks like it's going to be an impressive porch tied in with that wraparound deck way up on that slope.
Well, I hope so.
I also, tonight is a porch night as opposed to a chicken night. So, and I'm, every time a porch application comes up, I'm reminded of Dr. Oh, yes. So now I'll draw a name. Anyway, it was a Dr. Boyke who did a presentation at Irondequoit High School after the Columbia or whatever, Columbine. And he pointed out that our society had gone from a front porch society to a rear deck society. And with that had come a number of social ills and isolation of neighbors, and that front porches gave a much more neighborly atmosphere that was conducive to interrelations between neighbors and even safety of the community. So and one of my former neighbors who had applied to this board years ago to put a front porch on his house that would have looked great, that all the neighbors supported, was told that if they granted that to him, they'd have to grant it to everyone. Well, I'm pleased to say that our board, I think, is receptive to porches. So it's nice to see you taking the interest in becoming more social with your neighbors and taking a better view of the neighborhood. So thank you for that.
Very welcome. I'm glad to.
And I'll bet you can't figure out what my position on that is.
Well, you just educated me, and certainly you're making my case for me. So I'm going to hope that it works.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I only got one question. Is the roofing material is going to be metal, and is it color to match the existing roof or a different?
Truthfully, I hadn't decided the color, but I was going to, whatever looks best with the property. So something that's, consistent with upkeeping the look of the property. And I think that's ultimately why I wanted the porch on. If you have seen the property, it looks very flat faced and doesn't have a lot of curb appeal right now. And I think the porch will be something that'll bring it to light so it stands out a little more. Oops, Stella's attending the meeting.
That's all right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I would just like to say, I think it's going to be an awesome addition. My wife and I took a look at the property this past weekend, and like to what you said, we're kind of surprised at the front and how flat it is. So I think it's really going to help give a lot of curb appeal. So I'm gonna be in favor of it.
Great.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, do do we have anybody who's interested in participating in the public hearing with respect to this application?
So I'm reviewing the attendees and I don't see any hands raised to provide public comment.
Okay. So we will close the hearing with respect to this case then and move on to the next item on our agenda.
Great.
And just for the record, I checked the zoning board email and there were no emails to the zoning board at aroundaquoit.org.
All right.
Thank you, Michelle.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 2020-06-2. Upon the matter of request by William and Sandra Thorpe for an area variance to construct a new front porch with less than required front setback on premises 127 Fairleigh Drive in an R2 residential district.
Okay, Mr. Thorpe, are you there? Or Mrs. Thorpe?
I'm gonna have to unmute them. I'll do that right.
Okay,
So the applicant is Bill Thorpe and he has been unmuted. Bill, you are now audible to the board member.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay. My name's Bill Thorpe, 127 Fairleigh Drive.
All right, if you'd take a moment, raise your right hand, which I can't see, but
Okay.
I'll assume that you're doing. And do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I understand you also are interested in putting a porch on the front of your house.
That's correct.
And did
We're
you hear the
looking-
comments on the earlier case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Then we don't need to repeat those. So tell us what you'd like to do.
We want to make it, we want to come out an extra 3 feet from what we're allowed. We're requiring a 27-foot setback instead of 30-foot, which is the minimum. We want to make it 8 foot deep by roughly 36 feet long with a
All right.
covered roof and typical railing, stairs.
When I was reading your application, you indicated that if to comply with the current setback, that people who were sitting on the porch would have to get up and move their chairs in order for others to move by, but that the 8 feet would give you room for people to remain seated while others went by. Is 8 feet?
That's correct.
Is 8 feet going to be enough for that, or would 10
I know
work better?
8 foot's good enough.
All right.
I've done a couple other porches and I've done 6, 7, and 8, and 8 works out great.
Okay.
And a 10 foot, a little bit bigger was just too big for the front of the house, I think.
Okay. I just didn't want you to, go small thinking that, you had to go small in order to be able to do it. So,
If it's possible, if we go to like 8'5", that way there's no waste of materials or anything. 8'5" would work, good.
what would that be?
But it's not 8 foot 5 inches.
Oh,
Because standard material is like roughly 8, and then you have a couple of more inches. It's just works out better that way. But no, there's no waste at all.
all right. So if we were to approve the application with a setback of up to 9 feet, that would accommodate everything you need?
Oh, definitely.
All right. Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll open it up the hearing to public input. Is there any public input?
So I'm showing no raised hands at this time. And I don't know if Michelle has any incoming emails to the zoning board at aroundaquoit.org.
I just checked and no emails.
All right, then we will,
I'm sorry,
go
if I
ahead.
could just clarify, were there any letters or emails that came prior today regarding this case? I know there was one for the previous one, but I didn't have any for this case.
I did not receive anything.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. And we don't need to take a break, I don't think. So we'll take both of the applicants I see are still present on the screen. So we'll follow our normal practice and take the applications in the order in which they appear on the agenda and for which applicants are still present, which means that the first application is pertaining to the porch, proposed porch at 96 Wabash Avenue. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does someone wish to make a motion with respect to this application? Since no one's speaking, I'll make a motion that we grant the variance as requested. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who's that?
Brad.
Brad? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, because we can't, we have to run down. So Ms. Bickett,
Aye.
Mr. Hart,
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Intini,
I vote aye. And I don't know if you want to put the letter that was in here on the record. There was one letter in there too.
yeah, that was submitted with the application from the neighbor to the south who indicated that she had no difficulties and thought it would improve the neighborhood. Thank you. Mr. Scott. Aye. Mr. Trevis,
Aye.
Mr. Upson,
Aye.
motion carries 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. Nobody is absent. The board is fully constituted. Virtually so. Oh, and I forgot to make the findings, so I apologize. With respect to the findings to support the granting of the area variance, any changes to the character of the neighborhood will be positive and will improve both the curb appeal of this house and by reflection, the other homes in the neighborhood. The alternative that doesn't require a variance would have the porch end further north of the line of the house, which would at best be odd looking. It is not a substantial request, given the fact that the house is on the same setback and has been there for quite some time, and there's been no difficulties. It will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions if it's granted. It's not a self-created situation. It's created based on where the house was located and the fact that she would like to have a porch. So those are the findings. Does everybody approve of those findings?
Yes.
All right, we're good. The next application before the board tonight pertains to 127 Fairleigh Drive. This is also a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll move that we approve it.
All right. Is there a second?
Second. Brian.
Yep.
All right. I think obviously this is not going to have the change is going to be positive in the neighborhood. I don't believe it's going to be an adverse impact on the neighborhood. Alternatives, obviously one is not doing a porch. The other one is if they stay within the setback limits, the porch will be too small to be functional. I don't believe it's a substantial variance that they're requesting. It doesn't appear to be any adverse effect on the environment. Placing a porch is kind of normal in neighborhoods around here, and I think it's good for the environment that you discussed earlier. And it is self-created because obviously they want to add a porch, but it's not an issue that should affect our decision.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Ms. Bickett,
Aye.
Mr. Hart,
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Intini?
Aye.
Scott? Aye. Mr. Trevis
Aye.
and Mr. Upson.
Aye.
So the motion carries 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are fully constituted virtually as a board. That concludes the determinations on the cases on the agenda tonight, along with the packets for tonight's agenda. I believe that we all received, here they are, copies of the draft of the minutes from our meeting on May 4th. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Yeah.
And does anyone have any changes, corrections, additions, deletions, revisions?
I've got one. I'd like to have the minutes reflect that the meeting wasn't at the town hall, but was done via Zoom or Skype or whatever it is we're on, the video conference.
Absolutely.
Yes, good point. You obviously read from the top of the page down.
Yeah.
All right, and any other revisions or corrections that anybody would suggest to the minutes? All right, so with that revision to the minutes, I would move that we approve the minutes as drafted with that change. Is there a
Second.
second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and that concludes our agenda for this evening. I thank everyone for their participation. I'm hoping that in July, we can be back into a little more level of normalcy, but in the meantime, our work continues and so does that of our citizens of our town, and we appreciate everyone's efforts. So thank you very much, and the meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Arundecoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access.